Ryan was 32, living in the heart of New York City, a place where the streets never slept, and the air always seemed heavy with both opportunity and pressure. He had a decent job at a marketing firm, an apartment overlooking the skyline, and enough money to get by comfortably, yet something was missing. Deep inside, he carried a constant weight on his chest, a gnawing restlessness that no accomplishment or paycheck could silence. His friends saw him as successful, but Ryan often looked in the mirror and wondered why he still felt so hollow inside. Each morning began the same way, with his phone buzzing endlessly, pulling him straight into a storm of emails and notifications. Before he had even brushed his teeth, his heart was already racing. He worried about the presentations he had to deliver, the endless meetings, the fear of disappointing his boss, and the silent comparisons he made with colleagues who always seemed more confident. By the time he left his apartment for work, anxiety had already taken hold of his entire day. It was as if he never had room to breathe. On the subway, he often found himself staring blankly at his reflection in the dark window, surrounded by strangers, each lost in their own world. He noticed how tightly he gripped his phone, scrolling aimlessly through social media feeds. Instead of calming him, the endless photos of smiling faces, promotions, vacations, and perfect lives only amplified his insecurities. He asked himself silently, why can't I feel as happy as they look? Why does everything feel like a competition I can never win? His commute felt longer than it was, filled with invisible battles no one else could see. At the office, Ryan was known as hardworking, but the truth was he lived in constant fear of failure. Every presentation felt like a test of his worth. Every comment from his boss felt heavier than it should. Even when he succeeded, the relief lasted only for a moment before the next wave of worry hit. He never celebrated small wins because his mind was already occupied with the next challenge, the next possible mistake. It was exhausting to live in a world where peace of mind seemed like a luxury he could never afford. Evenings offered no escape. After work, Ryan often promised himself he would go to the gym, meet a friend, or simply relax with a book, but instead he returned home drained. He would sit on the couch, grab his phone, and lose hours scrolling mindlessly through apps, trying to distract himself. Yet distraction never gave him peace. In fact, it only deepened his restlessness. He compared himself to old classmates who were now married, traveling, or starting businesses. He compared himself to strangers whose curated lives seemed flawless. The more he compared, the more inadequate he felt, and the cycle continued. Family dinners were the moments he missed the most. His mother often called, asking him to visit, but Ryan always made excuses about being too busy. The truth was, he felt embarrassed about showing up exhausted and emotionally unavailable. He remembered the warmth of sitting around the table as a child, laughing with his parents and siblings, yet now he lived alone in a city full of noise, feeling isolated despite being surrounded by millions of people. Loneliness only added fuel to his anxiety, making him question the choices he had made in life. Late at night, when the city lights flickered outside his window, Ryan often lay awake staring at the ceiling. His body was tired, but his mind refused to rest. He replayed conversations from the day, worrying if he had said something wrong. He imagined worst case scenarios at work, fearing the consequences of mistakes he hadn't even made yet. Anxiety wrapped around him like a tight blanket, suffocating any chance of peace. He whispered to himself in the dark, "Why can't I just stop thinking? Why can't I just find some peace?" Sleep, when it finally came, was shallow and restless. Weekends should have been a time for relief, but they brought their own challenges. Without the structure of work, Ryan's mind wandered freely into worry. He often made plans with friends but cancelled last minute, overwhelmed by the thought of socializing. He spent hours thinking about his life's direction, convincing himself that he wasn't doing enough, achieving enough, or living up to expectations. Even moments of relaxation, like sitting in a cafe with coffee, were poisoned by overthinking. He admired the calmness of strangers around him, wondering why tranquility felt like an impossible dream. Everything changed one rainy Sunday afternoon when Ryan stumbled upon a podcast while browsing Spotify. The title caught his eye, Finding Peace Through Stoicism. Out of boredom, or perhaps desperation, he hit play. The speaker talked about ancient philosophers who lived centuries ago, yet their wisdom seemed to speak directly to Ryan's struggles. He heard the words of Marcus Aurelius, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." For the first time in months, Ryan felt a flicker of hope, as though someone had handed him a small light in his darkness. The podcast explained that Stoicism wasn't about suppressing emotions, but about learning to master them. It was about recognizing what was within your control and what wasn't, and focusing only on the former. Ryan paused the episode, grabbed a notebook, and wrote down the quote that had struck him so deeply. He repeated it quietly, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." The idea felt revolutionary. All his life, he had been chasing control over external circumstances, jobs, money, opinions, and outcomes. Yet he had never paused to consider